In the Circuit Court of Lafayette County, Mississippi, Matthew Oliver Reardon versus State of Mississippi, cause number L20-316. This is a motion for relief from judgment or order. Comes now before the court, Matthew Reardon, the petitioner and plaintiff, and respectfully moves this court for relief from judgment in cause number L20-316. Petitioner would show just cause through the upcoming reasons listed. Showing to the court the following reasons Movan is entitled to relief. Fraud committed on behalf of Lafayette County officials and employees. A. MRCP Rule 5.1b3 states if a person is taken into custody, the person shall be taken without unnecessary delay, and in no event later than 48 hours after arrest before a judge who shall proceed with an initial appearance. The aforementioned cited rule goes on to state, if the person arrested is not taken before a judge within 48 hours, the person detained shall be released on execution of an appearance bond in the minimum amount set pursuant to Rule 8 and directed to appear at a specified time and place. Rule 5.1b3 conforms to the United States Supreme Court holdings in Gerstein v. Pugh. 2. That petitioner, Movan, was deprived of due process rights guaranteed to him by both state and federal law. Petitioner was unlawfully confined at the Lafayette County Detention Center for 6 weeks' time. Petitioner was denied the opportunity to obtain a lower bond amount that fell within reasonable guidelines which petitioner or his family could afford. Movan was held on a bond set 3 times higher than guidelines allow, despite the state of Mississippi not producing so much as a piece of evidence suggesting it had a valid claim. Petitioner in this cause asserted he had evidence to prove he couldn't have committed such a crime alleged, petitioner never being accused of a felonious crime prior, and absolutely no injuries inflicted upon the claimant. A habeas corpus petition was filed by the public defender demanding the sheriff of Lafayette County to bring petitioner before the court to show just cause for the illegal confinement of the petition. And while the petition approved to proceed via informa pauperis, petitioner was never brought before the court and was further illegally confined for an additional 4 weeks' time. Petitioner was never made aware of this habeas petition ever being filed until nearly 6 months later, when he found out on his own. This amounts to misrepresentation by petitioner's counsel, and petitioner has been requesting answers to no avail, making the petitioner question whether fraud had occurred, yet unsure where the true liability and responsibility falls. Due process rights entitle the defendant in a cause to receive a preliminary hearing to determine if there is enough evidence warranting the defendant to stand trial. Petitioner was never afforded a preliminary trial within 14 days as required by law, which in the absence of a preliminary hearing within 14 days requires that the defendant be released on his own personal recognizance and be given a court date and time. This never happened. All requests by petitioner to have his bond lowered to a constitutionally fit amount went completely ignored after being given a bond amount that was 3 times higher than the maximum guidelines established less than a year prior by the Mississippi Supreme Court. That established guidelines called for an alleged crime punishable by a maximum up to 10 years incarceration to be set in the range of $5,000 to $50,000. Petitioner's alleged crime, yada yada. The crime Movan was accused of included a maximum fine of $3,000 and a maximum incarceration of 5 years. The bond set in this case was nowhere in the vicinity of established guidelines set by the Mississippi Supreme Court. Movan petitioner never caused any physical harm to anyone, had never been accused of a felony crime prior to this allegation. Bond is not supposed to be set in a punitive way, only to ensure the defendant shows up to appearances. Movan/petitioner had pending ongoing litigation against Lafayette County due to a highly contestable arrest made on May 1st, 2017, when Movan was arrested for disorderly conduct, simply for standing on public property holding the then state flag of Mississippi. Movan states that it is this reason, along with his child and girlfriend at the time, which would have easily shown and conveyed the fact that Movan was not a flight risk, not to mention Movan is a Marine Corps veteran that had never had any prior history of being a flight risk. Therefore, it is entirely the impression of the Movant that bond was used in a punitive way by a Justice Court Judge, Carolyn Bell, that has had a history of setting bonds in the lower end of bond guidelines. Movant petitioner was held, restricted, suppressed, and illegally confined in the Lafayette County Detention Center from the time of his arrest on May 26, 2017 until he received an initial bond hearing on May 30th. This amounted to nearly 96 hours before Movant was brought before a judge. This was twice the maximum length allowable under Mississippi Rules of Criminal Procedure, which was readopted less than a year prior. Movant was not only denied a reasonable bond for Lafayette County's egregious errors, but Justice Court Judge Carolyn Bell's bond issued appearance bond of $150,000 for a presumably innocent American by long-standing court precedents showed bond being used in a punitive way to influence the outcome of a sham legal proceeding, which was initiated by Lafayette County in the state of Mississippi, its employees, along with elected and appointed officials under knowingly false pretenses. The fact that Movant was interrupted by Judge Bell and advised of his Fifth Amendment rights on two separate occasions when he tried to show information up front, which would show the impossibility of Movant to have committed the alleged crime, should concern and frighten every American. Petitioner asserts incomplete confidence what all concluding evidence would demonstrate as a clearly shown political attack on petitioner by way of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, organized crime, and the successful deprivation and continued deprivation of the petitioner's rights. Petitioner Movant states that his life was completely ruined and millions of splinters sent ripping through the area and surrounded area.